Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson yesterday, joined by Tim, the Freedom Marion O'Connor.
Fresh off the road, brother, from out there doing God's work of installing commercial solar systems.
Heck yeah, man. No, glad that you are at the home base today rather than trying to do this from your cell phone in some hotel room in Long Island.
It's so stressful because I can't see the comments and, I just don't know what's happening as well. And I don't think, honestly, probably Bob hates the audio, right? Like he's probably not happy with the audio.
Probably. He's privately grumbling about it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now, usually he tells me if it's really bad, he'll be like, Kevin, this stinks.
It's just so much worse than what we do together when I'm at the home base and you're at your home base. I listen to our podcast on Spotify afterwards because we're actually, our show, when I compare it to other shows, is really not that bad. I think more people should check us out on Spotify, and I think it would be good. I think it would be good for us, and it would be good for them.
Yeah, no, specifically, we want to grow our Spotify following because then we can start monetizing the podcast a little bit. Be nice.
Making big money. I'll start doing advertisements for something.
Yeah, no, I mean, where are all the offers to do advertisements for gold and like shady pharmaceutical products? Because I
wonder, we should go sign up for those. I think that there's an issue of hey, we'll pump your product. We get a code name. You punch in Kevin and Tim, right? Or a free solution, and then we get a percentage of the sales if we sign up that way.
Yeah, no, I mean that can be a legit thing,
Yeah, I mean,
so sometimes it's good. Other times it's like, oh, we're just gonna show for this thing we don't believe in. We will just be fanning ourselves with wads of cash. Oh yeah, do this thing. It's probably fine.
Yeah, no, it would be nice to get a little bit of a following on Spotify. I do think our show stacks up nicely against other shows out there, and there are other good shows out there. I'm not saying that there's not. It's
just good stuff.
Yeah,
but ours is among that good stuff, so you should make sure you're subscribing.
It's an undiscovered gem, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but speaking of good stuff, we have a good show today. Talking about a few local issues too. We have a Rochester, Monroe County based issue that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about an issue going on in Syracuse, something that affects a friend of ours. In fact,
yeah, well, and the whole cancel culture thing, this overblown kind of persecution that gets going after a very minor thing, we'll talk about it during the show, man.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about some national news stuff.
The Trump train, man. I'm preparing my defense of Donald J. Trump right now. You and I are going to be on opposite sides of this. I'm telling you right now.
Of course you are. All right.
The man, the myth, the legend. The DOJ has been weaponized, Kevin.
The clown in chief.
Free speech is not free, bro.
Yeah. We'll talk about it. I'm sure that'll be a good segment. And then maybe we'll get to the interstellar news.
Aliens, they're everywhere, bro. We need to unite as a world and prepare. And Trump laid it out. That's the other thing. He laid out the Space Force, bro. It didn't exist before him.
Because he knew. He's like, we gotta be ready. The aliens, they're already here.
Yeah,
he knew. But all right, we're gonna get to the show though. We're going on here, and of course, as usual, leave your comments if you have something good to say, and we'll read them out here if they're good.
Absolutely.
Okay. Heading in 10.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Barian O'Connor.
I am here, brother. I am ready for a show, and we're going to solve some problems. We're going to be talking about stuff of local area interest, and you and I have this ongoing discussion, right, about whether it's incompetence or malice when we start talking about the government and its actions in the market and its actions when it takes time to help people. Sometimes, to me, it seems they're so incompetent that it's got to be malice. And we're going to talk about a case like that today, Kevin.
And we sure are. So we'll talk about this issue in Monroe County related to this the county housing homeless people at a motel and how it went terribly wrong this week, created a whole PR crisis for the county, for the motel, for everyone. Everyone had an opinion, jumped in, and it did not have the outcome that we expected. And then we'll talk about some activists in Syracuse and whether or not activists should go after a place for being a venue for various different groups. Of course, some national news. And we might talk about the Trump thing, maybe some interstellar news. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, we've got so much stuff to talk about that I'm afraid we're not even going to get to it all, to be perfectly honest.
Probably not. But of course, if you're listening on WYSL, sometimes we talk about stuff during the break, and sometimes, or almost every time, we talk about stuff after the show too. So if you're not a subscriber on our podcast, you're not following us on social media, you got to go do that. You got to check it out. Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, the Kevin Wilson pages, the Tim O'Connor pages, all of those. Plus, go find us, on Spotify or whatever, right? It could be any podcast, but find us on any streaming service, and make sure you find us and subscribe to A Free Solution, the podcast, so you catch all that extra stuff too. It's all free right now too. I ain't even charging for it. It's all free.
It's all free.
Go get it.
It's great content. We can get a little bit, like, the radio show has certain limitations. Kevin and I push the limits a little bit stronger in the for the online audience segments of our show.
Yeah, for sure. So if you want to check out any of that stuff, a little bit of extra show, all the podcasts is there, plus all the stuff you hear on the radio show too. Make sure you subscribe to A Free Solution podcast. Anyway, self-promotion aside, let's talk about what's going on in Monroe County. And this story has been kind of developing over a couple of days. And what it was is that, just to give the background on the story, there was a Motel 6 in the county over on Charlie Ave where the county was putting people who were homeless, right? So but you can ask the county for housing assistance and they'll go find a place to put you. And a lot of times that place to put you is a motel that has open rooms, right? So there's some motels that'll just, like, half to 3/4 of the rooms might have people who are homeless, and it also be like a refugee thing, like it's just temporary housing, right? So this Motel 6 has been doing this thing for years, and suddenly the county was like, hey, this motel isn't doing this thing anymore. We had to shut it down because of sanitary conditions. And we're going to try to, this is on a Monday, we're going to try to place everyone by Friday. And so for these families who are like, they got told, they got a notice, like, you need to be out like right now. Sometimes individuals, but sometimes families with children are like, what do you mean we're going to be placed by Friday? It's Monday. What do I do until Friday? Like, it's a serious situation. They're like, yeah, no, it's terrible that this awful hotel would kick you out. But we had to, because of sanitary conditions, and the hotel said they refused to take anybody. Right. This is how the story started out when it first broke.
And then as they trace it through, Kevin, apparently there's more to the story.
Apparently there's more to the story, because again, at this point, everyone's jumped in. They're yelling. They're like, this is why the county needs more funding, and this is why, like, we need to move away from like greedy motel owners and like just build affordable housing. And everyone's got their opinion on it, right? Or like they're being kicked out because of immigrants, which, like, they were renovating some rooms because of immigrants, but they weren't actually kicking out anyone, as it turns out. Because all that really happened was like the motel owners like, hey, we can't take any additional people right now because the empty rooms are being like renovated. They did need to get fixed up.
And that's one of the benefits of staying in a hotel. You get a well-maintained room, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, but at some point they've got to take the time to maintain the room. They've got to
Right.
clean things up. They've got to freshen up the paint. And yeah,
And
so
yeah, like apparently some of the conditions in the motel like are actually bad. Like that's sort of a legit thing, but it also might in part be that some of the residents might not fully have it together and might not always like leave the room in the best of conditions, right? Or
yeah, let's
well,
do you mind if I kind of talk about the people that sometimes get this temporary housing, right?
yeah,
There's people that lose their jobs that
yep,
that are broke, right? They get kicked out of their current situation. A lot of people, and this is something that I kind of, even as a libertarian, it's not the worst way for us to spend our money, right? Like
mm-hmm.
there's
I
homeless
agree.
people that deserve help. There's kids that deserve help. There's displaced kids that deserve that we're gonna help no matter what, right? Like, so these things are real. It's a program that exists, and this one went sideways.
Yeah, and so let's talk about the specific way it went sideways because again, what actually ended up happening is it wasn't the hotel saying like everyone's got to leave immediately. That's not what it was. What they actually said, they communicated to the county is that we cannot take any additional people right now because we need to renovate these rooms. The county overreacted. They misunderstood what was going on. They didn't bother to clarify what had happened. And even when the motel owner tried to clarify, they had already kind of moved ahead with stuff. Like, nope. We're gonna move everyone. Don't worry, we're gonna move everyone. Like
Yeah,
all this could
you
have been
read the
solved.
article. Maybe we
Yeah.
should post a link to the article.
Yeah,
I'm
I'll
sorry
post
if
a
I'm
link to the
interrupting.
article. There's a great WXXI article that is in here. I know we
Because
don't like
as I kind of read through it, it felt like a little petty bureaucrat got kind of like annoyed with the situation and then just jumped into action and kind
yeah.
of panicked, right?
And
Like just said, "Oh my God, we've got to do something." And then I started wondering, like maybe they got a friend that's got a hotel or something.
yeah, like
But
I don't like so I don't know that like that's what it is. It just seems like there was like a misunderstanding and it could have been like solved with a phone call, right? Like someone kind of like misunderstood, like, oh, they're saying that they want to be done with the program, so we're gonna have to move, we're gonna panic and we're gonna move all these people, right? But like that failure to fall through and understand and communicate effectively, like seriously disrupted the lives of these people who already have enough disruption in their lives. They're already going through a bad time as is.
yeah,
And yeah, like to me, like, and again, this situation doesn't scream to me like, yeah, we should be giving that agency more money. Like, no, that's not like,
that's not it. That's not
no,
it.
that's not it. Like, you just people need to communicate better and like take the time to understand because like misunderstanding and not following through in this case seems to have can considerably disrupted the lives of these people and
Yeah,
they
yeah,
went out and they trashed a hotel owner, which again it seems like there might be some issues, but like that wasn't really the reason why it happened. Like it's just something that got way blown out of proportion. And like the thing I had mentioned to you that I tagged you in is because I retweeted this and I said Hanlon's razor strikes again. A Hanlon's razor is never attribute to malice what can better be attributed to stupidity or incompetence, right?
right.
Because like most of the time that's how I see government is like because the way this initially got like presented is like either the county was being stingy or the motel owner was being stingy and people were just being greedy and awful and like whatever, and it turns out it's just people panicking based on emails. Like that's what it's just like the normal bureaucratic nonsense overreaction type of stuff, like which it's a I've had experience with recently too with a different bureaucrat than this, but
Was that your community garden
my
issue?
community garden that the city
Yeah.
threatened to bulldoze again, which is amazing. But anyway, that's a story maybe for the bonus show, but no, like to me, like this is just wild incompetence. And I say like there's sometimes that line, right? Like where it's like something is so incompetent that it ends up looking malicious
Sure.
or actually being malicious in like the outcome. And I think this is one of those situations where like I kind of agree with you. Like this ends up being malicious at least. I don't know if it has malicious intent. I don't know if that is purposeful incompetence. Like if there is something in there that we find out later, okay, sure, we'll say that, but
Yeah, I'm gonna travel down this road. Like when we look at like government agencies and people that go to work for government agencies, there's an archetype, a personality archetype, and so it's I admire your ability to write things off as not malice. I think that's great. But like I've mentioned in the past, I've been at this for a long time, and they've forgotten the mission of government is to the serve humanity, serve the people that elect them, serve the people that are paying their bills, and so when we get into whether it's incompetence or malice, when the end result is absolutely horrific, we have to blame the government because even the archetype of the people that they hire can create these problems. Like there was
Right.
a phone call would have
Yeah.
solved this problem, and that's a level of incompetence that I have a problem with. And this is not like, guys, we get conflated, we get upset about people on welfare and stuff like that. I get it, but this is a program that exists. There's reasons, like kids could lose their parents and get put in a hotel if they're old enough. All right, somebody's house could have burned down, or a rental property could have burned down, or rental property could have got condemned. Any of these things. And yes, we're here. Our society's already structured to help people out like that. So this is a very weird thing. I'm very like,
no, again, it's just like a level of like either indifference in some cases where like, oh, well, them's the rules type of situation, or just like, well, I'm not going to follow through. It seems like what it is. And, again, I don't know. In this situation specifically, like, and in most situations, it's indifference or incompetence that really ends up hurting a lot of people, and is a good reason for me not to give the government more power, because a lot of people are indifferent or incompetent and cannot possibly truly care for the lives of the people that's they are supposed to be serving, right? And then is therefore better to find other community-based mechanisms to do this. That's generally like my whole deal, and why I'm libertarian is like that this type of situation is inevitable, and usually it's not even as well intentioned as this. In this case, you could at least say like, oh well, maybe they were trying to like they just misunderstood, and they were trying to like really help people by acting quickly,
sure.
Sure.
And look,
Right.
I do like to give human beings, even human beings that exist in government bureaucracies, the benefit of the doubt. So yeah, sure, there maybe was a like, oh my God, we've really got to straighten out this situation. But like one of the things that I'd like to bring up always is like, here's a solution to some of this if we want to save money and we come up with a community-based solution. If we were to lower zoning requirements, lower residency requirements, be less intrusive in that market, perhaps the government wouldn't have to take our tax dollars and pay them to a hotel, right? Like,
No, I mean
we could.
there's well, you think about like, you got to think of it in like marginal terms, right? Like there's a lot of people who are like just on the bubble. Like a couple bad days could lead to them being homeless, or like a steady streak of a couple weeks could lead to them being able to like pay their rent again, right? Like a lot of
Absolutely.
people on the bubble. So if you like do a few things to like improve choices in the housing market and get some market pressure to lower costs, the bubble lowers, right? Suddenly, like those people who are on the edge, they're going to be mostly fine. They have a little bit more like leeway for things to go wrong and still like keep their housing.
Sure.
And it
And
lowers down low. And like it's a marginal thing, but for the people who are on that bubble where you make that change to market, where it's not obvious, where a politician can't take immediate credit for that thing, that's thousands and thousands of people whose lives are made better, but a politician doesn't get like good credit for it.
Sure. And then look, you know who else might be on the bubble? Some elderly homeowner who might be having like a hard time paying their taxes, who if they could count on the government, if it became the residential situation became a problem, if they could count on the government, A, for a little bit of money, and B, to help them get rid of somebody really quickly if that person isn't working out, which is not really possible under our current system.
No.
We could help two people on the bubble for the price of one, right? Like all of a sudden an older person is more comfortable at home because they have a little extra money. And our zoning laws, our rigorous tenants' rights programs, all of those things like are a real problem. And if we could solve this problem with freedom, perhaps. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
we absolutely could. There's it like, but again, politicians don't get credit for that as much, because like it's diffuse. It's just stuff happening out in the market that it's harder to both quantify and take credit for. And
Yeah,
and I
that's a
just
good point. That's a
yeah,
good point.
and two other points I want to make. Like one is that when I talk about like incompetence or indifference, and like not seeing the motivation as being like malice for most people, that, to be clear, is not an excuse to like not have accountability. And it's not to say like that situation isn't bad. Like indifference causes a lot of harm. Like incompetence causes a lot of harm, and you need accountability when situations arise where that hurts people, particularly when the government is involved. And then the other thing too is like, as just a lot of these tenants rights programs, these things, like they're well intentioned. They're people who like are like, yeah, we're
I
gonna
know.
help people, and we want
I
to like
know.
make sure that like these tenants can't just be kicked out for no reason. It's well intentioned, but what ends up happening with like extra tenant protection sometimes is that like small landlords end up dropping out, and bigger landlords have to price in the cost of like what happens when they get bad tenants. So prices go up
Absolutely.
for everybody. And then again, you have more people who are on the margin, who can't afford the rent, who can't get like their apartment, and they're either forced into situations that aren't as good, or they end up homeless.
Yeah, BlackRock says thank you all the time for the restrictions on what we've done to ourselves through zoning and tenants' rights
Yeah.
combined. Like that, BlackRock says thank you, and they
Yeah, I
just
mean, like literally, like they talked about in the investor reports that they had. They said that they didn't foresee like a lot of local municipalities like loosening zoning laws. The supply would continue to be restrictive. Therefore, it's a good investment to keep buying up properties like this.
yeah. And they got economies of scale.
Yeah,
They can leave in a bad market. They can leave a place open
yeah.
regardless. They can just be like, all right, well,
Is
we've
it, and
got
like, and they are just responding to like rational economic incentives. Like, and you
sure,
can be like mad at them for this, but they're just like following the numbers. Like, you can fix this. All you got to do to fix this is let developers do this. If you let developers make a little bit of money, BlackRock will not be able to use this as an opportunity to exploit the market. That's all you got to do.
yeah.
Other people make money, housing prices get lower, people get housing, BlackRock loses. We
It's
can fix
amazing,
this.
right? I often talk about Oneonta, New York, where they they really tried hard to get rid of like student rentals, and so what they did was up the restrictions on who can occupy an apartment and the number of people that can be in any one apartment, and then
Right.
now all they have are student rentals and vacation rentals. It's like no one wants to rent to your average everyday person off the street because the government has terrorized small landowners, small landlords, and middle income people that would do it as a side hustle. Like they're terrorized. They're not going into that market. They just won't. They'll buy something and rent it out to Airbnb. And I support that, but we got to realize what we screwed up to begin with, right? And
Right.
that's the issue. And no politician, it doesn't meet their virtue signal, right?
No, exactly. It's what it's, and that's the tough part about like winning like libertarian policy positions sometimes, is that like if everything works, you can't fully claim credit for stuff. A lot. It's like, ah, yeah, I know, like everyone else had to go and do their own thing when I said that we should stop preventing them from being able to live their lives, and then that made things better. And then like, oh well, you didn't fix that, they did. I'm like, yeah, I know that. Like we all know that. Like that was the point though. But
They don't get their
politicians don't
name on
like
them.
being able to
Yeah.
like. There's no ribbon cutting for that. No one's gonna name a bridge after you for that.
No street name, no program name, no
Yeah.
nothing. It's
And
I
also,
did the
if
right
I
thing.
ever like do anything like that, please don't name a road after me. Like I can't imagine a more disrespectful thing to do to a libertarian than name a road.
Could you imagine? Oh my God. That would hurt. That would hurt. I mean, in a way.
Yeah.
Like I would want my road to be privately owned.
Yeah,
Like,
if it's a private road, that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
That's yeah, like, but private road, if it's a toll road, even better.
Even better. Yeah, no. Oh, that would be great. Just a slight charge to cross this bridge, the
Yeah,
Tim O'Connor Bridge. That would be
that's
great.
right. All right.
A free
Anyway,
solution.
we're heading up on a break. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution at WISL. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. All right.
It's wild, the law of unintended consequences, right? Like these little governments try to do the right thing, and then they, like you were just saying, there's no incentive to back off of it. There's no incentive to back out of those bad ideas. They're just like,
No, right. Yeah. It's like oh, you're gonna back out and say you're wrong and look foolish. No, people are gonna roast you for that. That's gonna be your opponent's commercials.
Oh, it's so funny. It's crazy. So we still have a great show, and we're kind of already like running long on time. We're not going to get there. I'm not even going to get to the illegal bio lab that they found in California, Chinese owned
Oh,
illegal bio
the
lab.
mouse COVID stuff. Yeah, I know. Like we'd mentioned as a topic. Like again, maybe this will be in the bonus section. Not like all the because this has actually been a story for a couple weeks now. All the stuff with the natural emergence of COVID and the reports that came out and the reporting by the New York Times and just like all this stuff going on question when the authors of these reports are like, yeah, actually, there's a pretty good chance that it came from a lab, but like we don't want to say that. Like just
No, the New York Times is that it. First, I kind of, as prepping for that to be a segment, I kind of went back through and found a bunch of things that New York Times has kind of gotten wrong over the years, and it's honestly incredible. And it seems to be like happening at an accelerating pace in a way. Like they were so wrong. Zero Hedge lost their platform, and they were like monetized on YouTube. They lost their platform for simply presenting a DNA analysis that said, based on what we're looking at, these things can only happen one way, and that's if human beings interact with this.
right. And some of the people who like were writing NIH funded reports on this were like, yeah, low key, we think that because of that exact reason, because they saw some stuff that
This
looked
makes
like it was
perfect sense.
artificially made that didn't exist in any of the natural emergent stuff that they were seeing, like, this is probably man-made, but we're not going to say that.
We can't
And
say
it turns
that.
out there was like, then like, see, that's like the malicious political stuff that like actually exists because it is
Sure.
out there like that. It's definitely a thing. I think it's more rare than maybe you think, but it's definitely out
Oh
there
no,
where
it's
they're like,
it's
we're gonna
everywhere, bro.
suppress this like good science and knowingly do so. And it wasn't even like we're gonna like kind of ignore things a little bit because of incentives. No, they're like blatantly like, we are
We don't want to
going
answer
to
questions about that.
not answer the questions about this. We're gonna pretend that this theory isn't it publicly pretend that this is like a crackpot theory to say it came from a
Right.
lab, and publicly say this the only way it could happen was from a natural emergence in the wet markets.
But
But
that,
like having private conversations that were documented being like, oh no, it's definitely a thing that like it probably came from a lab. It's actually more than likely that it came from a lab. But it just would be too dangerous to say so.
when the Department of Energy concludes that it came from a lab, that's good enough for me. Like I also still wonder why
Oh,
the
you're gonna
Department of
trust the
Energy.
government, Tim?
I'm still wondering why the Department of Energy is the arbiter of
I don't know.
Science. I guess it's weird to me, but okay.
Yeah, no, but yeah, no, but so anyway, we could probably go on about that for quite some ways if
That would
we
be
wanted to.
hilarious. We will on a different show. We've got like honestly that thing in Syracuse is gonna probably take up a whole segment. It's a pretty big deal what they did.
Yeah, it is. We'll talk about it. So we're gonna go back in 10 seconds, and we're gonna talk about Syracuse and rail line 5. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, yours today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Marion O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin, and as always, and look, so check it out. We're talking about New York State stuff that isn't weed related. So I think people should be pretty
Thank goodness.
excited about that.
I could bring it back to weed, but no, I won't. I won't though. I won't.
And look, my conservative friends, we're gonna actually talk about Moms for Liberty. We're gonna talk about cancel culture, and we're gonna talk about a libertarian owned bar, but they're really non-political, right? That is basically caught in the crossfires just for hosting an event. This cancel culture nonsense, this woke, like, let's hate everybody if they don't do things exactly our way,
Yeah. So talking about this, so the business is Rail Line. It's a bar out in Syracuse. I've been there before. They've had actually, I think the LPNY convention or some LPNY event was there one time.
Yeah, I've been there. It's a great place. Our buddy Sean is a wonderful guy. He's running the show there.
He's a manager over there. He's quoted in the story that we're going to be talking about. So I'll share the link from Based Politics. talking about this story, and I think who's it written by? It's written by Brad Palumbo, who's been a guest on the show before too.
Brad's a good guy. Like he
Yeah.
goes down a little bit of the woke wormholes sometimes, but generally, I really appreciate his efforts. Like, you know what I mean? Like
I really don't consider him woke. Like it's like almost conservative to me. Maybe I'm losing perspective, but
maybe I'm wrong. You know, like I'm trying to think. I always want to be.
Anyway,
fair,
we're not here to debate Brad. That's
no,
not
no,
what this
right.
is for.
We're
No, we're
here to
talking
thank
about.
him.
Okay, so let's give context to this story, right? So
Yeah.
this bar rail line, so they've hosted a bunch of events. You know, like our friend Sean Hannon, also a someone who's been on the show several times as well, and sometimes he's in the
Absolutely.
comments section. So Sean's great, and so he's the manager of this bar, but they host a bunch of different events. They host conservative events, they host Democratic Party events, they host marijuana events and legalization events. See, I told you I could bring it back to weed.
Like farmers markets, they do all sorts
so
of
they're an event space, right? Like that's what they do is they host events, right? So they'll take stuff. And so one of the events that they hosted was Moms for Liberty, which I would say I don't always we got Sean here.
All right.
Hey Sean.
So look, if you mind, let me just say what the context with Moms for Liberty is. That they're an organization that is particularly concerned with what they see going on in our schools, and they want to have an impact. And so where they got caught up, Moms for Liberty got caught in the crossfire of the woke culture mob because they wrote a letter that ostensibly quoted Hitler, but like the Canadian truckers carrying a Nazi flag, they weren't quoting Hitler like they supported Hitler. They're like, this is what we're fighting, and we're afraid that the government isn't the best people to be in charge of our children's learning. And so they wanted certain books removed from school libraries. They never asked, like, arguably people were claiming that they wanted books banned. I would argue that,
but
what's that?
It kind of seems that way to me, but regardless of that,
but I get it. Like,
right. So I mean, like the Hitler quote thing that people keep bringing up, those, like it was a quote about Hitler saying that, like, you need to control the youth to control the future, right? And that's what they're saying. Like, it wasn't like we support this. It was more like this is the threat coming from the left and the people who run schools now, and it's why it's so important to be involved in your schools, right? Like that's what it is.
That's their premise, right? That's what they're arguing for is people. And as Sean points out in the comments, that it was an affiliate from Hamilton County in Indiana that started the quote, and the official Moms for Liberty national chapter kind of disavowed it, kind of said, look, that was really bad.
It didn't come off the way they intended. Right?
Sure. Like, and again, like, so Moms for Liberty got themselves in the crossfire of the woke culture mob. And now, by the process of transference and projection,
right,
the rail line is somewhat in the crossfire here.
And this is a group, by the way, it's active all over. I think there's like quasi activist stuff happening in Monroe County too. And so they hosted this event here, or they allowed the event to go on here because they just host events. That's what they do. And people caught a hold of it, and they're like, okay, we're going to punish this business for allowing this thing to exist, right? Like, there's this idea of, like, if you give space to disagreeable people and allow them to exist in society at all, you are endorsing their views, which is, I mean, we could debate that. Like, so, I can take the like the woke side on this one if you want, but like, just to play devil's advocate. But like that's so like their whole the idea behind this is like, why would you allow people to and we'll clarify again, coming from Sean, we hosted the Onondaga County affiliate of Moms for Liberty.
For Liberty,
yeah, and so.
Not the Nazi quoting Indiana chapter, which
different thing. Again,
arguably people misunderstood the intent of that quote, right? Like,
right, yeah. So again, and I'm not really intending to defend them. Like, I don't I don't actually care. I think like the real issue like up for debate here, the thing that the woke folks are trying to say is like you should never give space to these people, that allowing them to exist in polite society effectively endorses their views, and therefore like you are contemptible for allowing them to be like able to promote an event, to gather people together, to fundraise, to like get more people into that, right? And that you are therefore part of the problem. So this is the argument that people make for it. Again, not one that I'm necessarily
You're
making.
not one you're
I'm
endorsing.
laying out like this is
Sure.
the nicest version of what these people think.
That is, that's, I was going to say you're kind of sugarcoating it a little bit.
That's
okay.
That's what I do. I was like, I'll give it. This is the nice version of how you make that argument. The way it actually played out is, people would say all sorts of nasty stuff about this restaurant, the people running it, and leave negative reviews that had nothing really to do with Railline itself, and like just all sorts of stuff to trash them, try to cancel this place, and whole protests and things like that outside of it. And so again, people certainly made, again, I made the nice version of the argument, like if you're hosting this, you're therefore endorsing those views. I don't know that that's true. I mean, there are plenty of places that have hosted Libertarian Party events who certainly didn't like totally share our views. Right. Some did, but some are just like, we're an event space and you are allowed to have event space.
They've had gay weddings at the rail line. Like, they are certainly not a bastion of judgmentalness. They've had fundraisers for Democrat candidates. Like, I believe Onondaga County Libertarian Party even endorsed a Democratic candidate. Probably like, it probably came around and bit him in the butt later, but still they did it. You know what I mean? And that's cool. Right. Like, that's how we try to have impact in our world. Like, bring libertarian ideas to the forefront, endorse people who are promising a more libertarian future, and participate, right? Like, so that's something we try to do. It's very cool. This is cancel culture is nonsense to me. The conservatives try to cancel Bud Light. I'm literally like drinking Bud Light just to make a point to my friends, like, because I don't care. I don't even like Bud Light that much. It's not even that great of a beer. It just is, like, guys, it's just a beer. It's nasty. It's low carb. That's it. I could drink a bunch of them. That's it.
Anyway,
that's all it is.
Also not here to praise or demonize Bud Light. So like just going back to that issue, like how do you respond to folks who are like, well, you shouldn't host events by people who have groups that disagree with, and just again to make the devil's advocate argument, like, is this just free speech? Are people just criticizing something that they disagree with and need to just kind of deal with it, right? Or is this cancel culture? Like, what do we do with this?
No, I get it. Like, that's a pretty good argument, right? Like, do you have the right to say, all right, now this place sucks and I don't want my friends to go there? I guess in a way you do, but there's a level of maliciousness there when they're calling or alleging that this is promoting Nazism, which it definitely is not. Like, it has nothing to do with Nazism. So that's a bad faith argument, right? Like,
it is.
And when they just have an open space for lots of cool stuff, that's the real argument. So why would they try to take them out? It's a relatively small business, and our small businesses struggle in New York State. So why would you do that?
Because there can be no one that disagrees with them. That's like everything must be this way, and you have to fight tooth and nail to have anything. What's the Chomsky quote? You can't be neutral on a moving train. So everything, needs to take a position. Every business, every individual, every nonprofit needs to take a position in the fight of culture wars and politics,
or be punished. Like, that's it. We're going to punish you if you do not comply. And if I was to draw analogies to Nazism, I would consider that kind of behavior appears. Actually, you know what? That's not actually fair. It's not. It's just.
Well, I mean, it's a thing of like totalitarian regimes, generally, right?
Yeah,
like it is a facet of like communist governments, of fascist governments, where like everything you do has to be positioned in relation to what the state is or isn't doing, right? And there can't be any, like, again, can't be any neutrality in this, because like neutrality is essentially opposition, right? You can't just be running a business. Like you have to take a side here. And so that Sean again, that the primary reason stated for us canceling the event was that we were hosting Hitler-loving Nazis. No, we probably should have just invited Sean to join us for this show.
Honestly, we should have put him on.
Sorry, Sean. We should have just had you on, man.
Yeah. First of all, he has his own podcast too, and he does a great job. Like he's a good, and he's been on before.
He's been on the show on A Free Solution, and back when it was Radio Free New York, he's been on the show before too. So we should just. Should just had you on, Sean. Sorry about that, but again, like I get like there's some things that are worth criticizing, right? Like if you're a business owner and like you are openly supporting a thing and people disagree with you, like the First Amendment doesn't guarantee you any respite from criticism, but I think there's a tactic, a set of tactics in a way of presenting the issue where like it's false, right? Again, like saying like that they're hosting Hitler-loving Nazis, like that's not true. Like they're definitely there are things in which I like somewhat disagree with, like this group's approach to like how they want to hijack the education system for their own purposes. Like they're just using the government but for their ends instead of the Democrats using it for their ends. Like it's regardless of how I feel about this group, I don't think that they're Hitler-loving Nazis, nor do I think that this business is like endorsing everything about what they do by hosting them there.
I love your nuanced take there. Like I appreciate it and I respect it, but I think that there is like this diametrically opposed society, and if we could get more people to think like us and accept that there is nuance to everything, and that the quoting Hitler, the mistake that Indian chapter made, doesn't mean that the Onondaga chapter is doing the same thing. And when we get into like this argument about book banning, I didn't feel like they were banning books. I felt like they were trying to get books out of school libraries, and then parents can still provide those books if they feel it's important, that they weren't after.
I guess it's important to clarify what they're doing. I guess banning books is a different level than they don't want them in public libraries, and we could debate over whether or not something should be in the public library or school or not, but it is somewhat different than banning a book, which implies
it is, right? Isn't it? I mean,
not being able to access it at all.
It's a world of difference as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and I said, and then the event did get canceled, John Clifford. So we were pressured for 2 days leading to the event canceled, right? So which cancel culture, man, that's what it is.
Look, it's something that we're stuck with, but I think that a certain segment of the population would like to decompress from some of this stuff.
Yeah, like I said,
we're here for you.
Yeah, and then this business lost other business from it as well. And John's updating a few things in the comments. Syracuse University is one of the 3 canceled events as a direct result, and there's more stuff in the article that we shared too from Base Politics. And yeah, again, I think your average person is like, I don't want to get involved in all these culture wars. I don't want to like make every single thing political. I don't want to have to like analyze every single like thing that I do for my business, for my life, for my community through the lens of like exhausting politics. And I mean that from both like the left perspective, the woke perspective, and the right wing perspective, where like, they're on about like whether or not you should drink Bud Light and stuff. It's like I don't want to deal with that either. That's also exhausting in a different way. Or having strong opinions on the Barbie movie, like, bro, I do not care that much.
No, and that's better. Like so yeah, we shouldn't go down the wormhole of the Barbie movie, but I did ask my kid. He did go. He took his girlfriend. I'm like, how was it? And he's like, oh, mid at best. And I'm like, was it pro male? And we laughed and laughed and laughed because he's like, he goes, Dad, some parts of it were kind of ridiculous, but overall it was just like a weird, dumb movie. And I'm like,
right.
That's my boy, like that's cool. That's the way to look at it.
Yeah.
Don't take it too serious. Be slightly annoyed and laugh it off,
That's right. All right. Anyway, we should head the break. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution on WYSL. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. All right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
this is a good like breakdown. Like who wrote the lyrics quoting Hitler saying that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world, and that was like the quote at issue. Shelley was similar to that one, and it's actually been an ongoing theory throughout history, right? That as we move towards a more public kind of village square, that if we can teach the kids to behave in a certain way, we control the future. And so Hitler wasn't the first one to say it. Moms for Liberty kind of lifted an almost direct line from him. And again, it was to point their angry finger at the government.
Right.
But nobody's going to take it, like
Yeah, I
in
mean,
this
like
day and age.
if I quote Joseph Stalin, like it doesn't mean I'm supporting what Joseph Stalin is doing,
Yeah,
right?
some cool quotes, bro.
Well, like he has that quote from like about like one death's a tragedy, a million deaths is a statistic, right? Like, and that is a way in which it kind of echoes in some ways what like Adam Smith said about like the distance that like large numbers and like and physical distance can give to people in terms of like how much they care about a thing, right? And so it's an interesting quote, and he certainly had a lot of statistics.
The woke mob went after Robert F. Kennedy for something about 14 days, 14 words and 88. Honestly, I couldn't even like process it.
That was a weird coincidence. I mean, so like there's like some Nazi associations with 14 and 88.
14 words, right? We must ensure a something future for Aryan children or Nazi children or something like that.
It's something about like supporting white nationalism, right? So it's a 14 words thing. And then like 88 is like H is the 8th letter of the alphabet, so 88 HH.
Yeah.
So
it just didn't seem real to me. Like
I mean, it was like I mean, I kind of looked at it, so I was like, this isn't like proof or anything. It is a little bit weird, but
you were kind of like, God, it's weird he put those two numbers together in his little speech. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's like it's weird. Like, I mean, or whatever it was. Like, was it a speech or was it like just a tweet? I don't even know.
I think it was just a tweet, probably.
Yeah, I didn't pay that much mind. Like I paid more attention to his like the COVID virus was engineered to like not go after Chinese people and Jewish people, and I'm like,
that seems weird.
That's weird you'd say that, man.
Yeah, there was a lot of context to that, allegedly, but also I don't look. First of all, he's a Kennedy, so people are interested in him because his last name is Kennedy. I think that as they get to know him, I think that the bloom is going to fade on RFK. Like, I believe that.
Yeah.
One of the real issues, though, Kevin, probably, and you understand this, is that there probably is a real hunger in the Democratic Party for an alternative to Joe Biden that could have some broad appeal, slightly less authoritarian, slightly less insolvent on economic issues. Like the guy's like just not there, like he doesn't quite. His tweets about Bidenomics is like I don't even know what to say. Like he's lost his mind. Whoever's even writing his tweets for him has lost their mind. And then Robert Reich backs him up, and I'm like, what are you doing, man? I don't know.
Good old Robert Reich.
Oh, that guy. I didn't even get to talk to Lars about my affinity for him bashing Robert Reich. He has decided that Robert Reich is his guy to kind of take down, and I love it because, as we all know on this show, that Robert Reich, I think, is kind of a lunatic.
Yeah.
Definitely not an economic. Like he's not. He's just an envy trading psychopath. That's all he is.
Anyway, speaking of the incompetent people who rule us, we're gonna go into the next segment in a minute, and we'll talk about the latest Trump indictment.
Yeah, all right, we'll talk about it.
I just heard you crack another beer.
I'd rather talk about aliens, man.
we're gonna get to the aliens. We're gonna get to the aliens. I don't even want to spend like the entire segment talking about this, but all right. Point is, if you listen to this part though, like in the last segment, go check out that business if you're in the Syracuse area. It's a good place.
It's a great place.
I really like it. Rail Lines. It's a great place run by a great guy, and hope they. I'm sure they'll recover for this because they do good stuff. So Anyway, we're going to go back in just a few moments. Again, thanks for all the comments. And we're just going to jump in the next section. We're not getting to all of these quite yet, but appreciate you being here, Patricia and Shelly and Sean and everyone else listening. All right, back in 5. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin, and apparently they really got him this time.
They. All right.
The weaponized DOJ has finally gotten Donald J. Trump.
Let's be specific here. They got Donald Trump. They have brought another indictment. Not just from having stocks of boxes and boxes of classified documents in his bathroom that he is showing off to strangers. Not just that, but also indictment for his role in attempting to maintain the presidency after the 2020 election.
That is correct. That's what they've got him on, that he knowingly was going to defraud the government because he had lost an election. I kind of parsed through the indictment, and I find that it rests on some unindicted co-conspirators, which is always an interesting thing when you see these indictments.
Someone talked.
It also rests on this concept behind free speech, that he was knowingly making false claims, hence the prosecution for fraud. And I think that honestly, that to me is going to be a hard case to make. Like, though, with the unindicted co-conspirators, that's kind of a big lever, right? Like, they can say, well, either you testify against them or we're going to indict you.
Right. I mean, that's part of what it is, right? Like, was there a conspiracy? And I mean, conspiracy in the literal sense of the word, to try to maintain power despite knowing that they had no legitimate claim to think that the results of the election were fraudulent or incorrect, and going beyond the legal means available. And they certainly tried the legal means available to challenge the results of the election and take stuff to court and get electors in there. Beyond all that, was there a conspiracy to try to violate the Constitution and prevent the peaceful transfer of power? Was there a crime in that process? And some of the stuff in here too, by the way, it is spooky. I'll be like, there's a part where they're talking about one of the deputy White House counsel was talking to the co-conspirator for that there hadn't been an outcome determinative fraud in the election, and that if the defendant remained in office nonetheless, there'd be riots in every major city in the United States. Co-conspirator 4 responded, well, deputy White House counsel, that's why there's an insurrection act. So they were like, oh, we'll just declare martial law if anyone gets mad that we aren't leaving office.
Yeah.
I look at stuff like this and I'm like, why is the chair of the Libertarian Party defending this stuff? Why? I'm like, I don't get why libertarians are they're just going after him. Like, man, this guy's terrible. The people around him are terrible. They're trying to stay in power. Like, what?
I think where we get in line, or where the Libertarian Party gets in line with them, is that it does appear to a lot of people. And so, look, I get that this is debatable, and for nuanced guys like us, I get there's an issue, but that the DOJ seems to be particularly aggressive when it comes to Donald Trump. We have to be concerned about the weaponization, not just of the FBI, which I feel has kind of been made obvious over the years, that they occasionally, now whether it's an endemic to the system or whether it's they occasionally get so crazy they make mistakes, I'm not persuaded. That goes to the incompetence versus malice kind of thing.
Right. So I mean, there's a bit of malice in the FBI.
Yeah, right. So
leave it there.
We get to this point where it people are concerned that these institutions, that the deep state will put its face out there and like a snake strike, and I think that perhaps is what.
All right. Well,
not to make excuses for them, and I don't want to put words in their mouth.
No, sure. So what? I guess the question to me is okay, the accusation from you, from the Chair of the Libertarian Party, from MAGA world, is that like that this is purely political, that this is not something that would be pursued with like anyone else. But the flip side to that is like, how egregious do you have to be in breaking the law before it starts to upend the concept of the rule of law itself, because you are not prosecuting this person for crimes that any other person would be thrown in jail for? And he was also in a unique position and with unique power to like abuse the system and attempt to like circumvent the Constitution itself. Like if this were a Democrat in office, like would you feel if Joe Biden decided that he wasn't going to leave under any circumstances and would declare martial law to stay in power if Trump won a legitimate election, like would you be like, nah, we shouldn't be prosecuting him, that's just political? Like I think most people would be like, no, that's bad, we should say it's bad.
Well, we can absolutely say that it's bad. We can absolutely agree that it's bad. What the problem is that the end result of all of that stuff is that some basically over emotional people have been locked away without like being able to see the light of day. And arguably, when it's a weird thing for me when we're talking about Donald Trump and him spouting off of his mouth, like I think we all agree he's kind of an idiot, right? He's kind of unpolished and he kind of doesn't think, like he's not the quintessential politician that can understand the nuances of these things. He's like a bull in a china shop, and he's in a way kind of hilarious and like also disappointing in so many ways. Like he didn't follow through on so much stuff. So like when we get into this guy, I wish that there was a better candidate. Like that's it. Like I mean,
like trouble. Literally the only thing Republicans have to do to win against Joe Biden is run anyone but Donald Trump. Like anyone but Donald Trump, like is gonna look great next to Joe Biden. Again, I don't really want them to win, but they're gonna look great next to Joe Biden. And if the Democrats want to win and Donald Trump's to nominate, all they gotta do is run anyone but Joe Biden, and they would crush him.
It's actually, like that's fascinating analysis. I kind of haven't thought about it like that. Like I'm looking at DeSantis, and I think his campaign's imploding, right? And when I listen to Vivek talk, I think that he's just another kind of like well-polished but statist Republican who's going to just RFK is going to take his people and make everything better. And it's like none of that's going to happen.
They're like that, and the RFK's like that on the Democratic side, and like so. In Ron DeSantis, I don't agree with him, but I think next to Joe Biden, Ron DeSantis is going to look spectacular. It's going to be like a Kennedy Nixon thing, right? Like he's going to look like the young, polished, put together guy next to a doddering old fool. Like that's what it's going to look like if they're on the debate stage.
Because that's what it is. Like that's
what it is. And again, like Ron DeSantis, like is terrible in his own ways, but like he's going to look great standing next to Joe Biden if he's on the debate stage. And again, that's not an endorsement of Ron DeSantis. That's just a political analysis of like a 45-year-old guy who can like string sentences together and not like ramble on about stuff is gonna look better compared to Joe Biden. And a Democrat who like doesn't look incompetent, like so I take that back. If the Democrats ran Kamala Harris, they're probably still lose.
Yeah, I mean, there's another mess there, absolutely.
But so they can't run just anyone.
I do got to be fair to Vivek because he did make a lot of noise about abolishing some of the alphabet soup that we have going on. So he does occasionally take very what we would call libertarian positions, and then he morphs right back into a statist. Not unlike some of the other voices out there, like the Matt Walsh and the Ben Shapiro's, who paint a libertarian picture of their belief system right up until it comes to like putting boots on the ground in foreign countries and backing an authoritarian surveillance state. You know what I mean? Like they kind of lose me there. Well, no, they don't kind of lose me. They lose me.
Definitely lose you.
Period.
No, for sure. And again, that's I as of right now have no intention to vote for any Republican or Democrat presidential candidate that I've seen so far. Like maybe someone will surprise me, but I so far I can't see myself voting for any of them.
I would vote for Lars Mapstead over any of them guys. Like literally I would, and I would go to the voting booth and vote for him because I whatever, it's something different. He's going to be consistent. He's talking about abolishing the state, like not abolishing the state, but definitely toning it down, putting it back into the realm of a service organization. He's going to unrig the system. All of those things have appealed to me. Like whether I think they're realistic or not, I don't care. I'm done pretending like that George W. Bush was right about anything. Like I'm done pretending it. So like the system, the uniparty system, the Republican Party, the GOP gave us Mitt Romney. Like, oh my God, we're lucky we're not in the like after our show because I'd be cursing my face off because that guy.
Let's save that for the bonus content, Tim.
Yeah,
that was the first election I voted libertarian. I was like, I'm not really going to vote for Mitt Romney. There's got to be something else out there besides Romney and Obama. And then I found Gary Johnson. I was like, well, actually, this guy's super cool. I'm going to support him instead. Yeah. Which I was working for like a political organization at the time, and I started telling people, yeah, I'm gonna vote libertarian. They're like, that is crazy. You are giving the election to Barack Obama. I'm like, guys, we live in New York State.
I voted for Ross Perot, so like I don't care. You know what I mean? I'm looking for the next Ross Perot, and that's a reality. It was just we need a change. We need an end to this duopoly, this uniparty nonsense. These guys are like, one party's like, oh, I hate war, but we have to fund all of the wars that we possibly can. And the other party's like, yeah, I hate war too, but like what we need to do is burn up our old munitions and give them away and record it as a win in the GDP. Like, woo. And it's like literally insane. And people buy into it for like whatever color revolution they want to. It's like nonsense. Get a grip, man. Get a grip out there.
They ain't going to. It's not going to happen, Tim. But yeah. But anyway, I don't know. Listen, presidential politics exhausts me. I hope that I hope the libertarians come up with someone strong. Like Lars is a fun interview, and I'm glad he was able to go on show. But Chase Oliver's another good one to look into. Be great if Justin Amash runs. I don't think he will, but it'd be great if he ran too. And he I don't know if Spike's gonna run, but yeah. Anyway,
Amash does not support Bidenomics. I'll just be honest with you.
he does not. No.
I just want to be clear. He also sees flaws in the string of tweets that the White House offers as Bidenomics. He's too nice about it, though. He's too polished.
Well, I mean, he's doing what, like, maybe because I'm that guy, but he's doing like what I want politicians to do, not just like yell about and get mad about. Here are the specific ways in which you're wrong and in which we can do better, right? Like, no, there's pointed anger there, but it's like, here's how we can do it better, and here's like how we can have a system that actually works. That's what I like about him. It's not just it's specific and detailed, and he's consistently principled over time. It's always so funny. You know what Justin Amash is great for? When people are like, you wouldn't be saying this if Trump were in office, and then he has the receipts ready.
He's got the receipts. Yeah. So look, I could in fact get behind a Justin Amash. Like I could enjoy Lars if he, honestly, like at some point it's going to take those big war coffers, those big campaign coffers to actually make this happen. And I don't know that we're there yet,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not looking for the best Republican out of a group of Republicans that love the government, and I'm not looking for the most libertarian Democrat. I'm not looking for that. I want a real libertarian candidate, like a Vermin Supreme, bro. Like he was Vermin Supreme. Everything he did was make fun of the absurdity of government. And so that had a lot of appeal to me.
I like Vermin Supreme. I know people are like, wow, man, that guy's such a clown. I'm like, I know, but he's a clown on purpose, at least.
It was good stuff.
Yeah, he has good satire. Like like if you've never heard like some of his speech about like forcing you to like brush your teeth and stuff, it's hilarious. Like
I've heard him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I unironically like Vermin Supreme, and I know some people. I've said that on like other like more I don't want to say stuffy radio shows, but like other radio shows before that I've been, I'm like, yeah, no, I like Vermin Supreme. It's great. It's hilarious. He's a clown on purpose. Everyone else is a clown on accident. Like
that's a good line. That is a good line. So do we got time to talk about aliens or what?
You know what? We're gonna have to save the interstellar news, the alien talk for the bonus show. So if you're listening on WYSL, we appreciate you being here. We love that you listen to the show, but y'all need to subscribe too, because there's bonus content afterwards. All that's there. All this show is there, and then bonus content. So we get to talk about the fun stuff like the aliens. After the show, and maybe some other stuff. I don't even know. But thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution on WYSL. Again, appreciate y'all being here. Have a great night, folks. Talk to you next week. Take care. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So check out. Hi, John. Thanks for being here tonight, man. I appreciate it. I know he's like John always wants us to be on Tuesdays, and when we're like we throw him for a loop when we come on Wednesdays. Tim Scott, you should check out Tucker Carlson's interview. Like he I don't think that Tim Scott came out looking good. Like Tim Scott came out looking like a neocon, warhawk. And I know he's a nice guy, and he's kind of got some moral caliber like that society needs on some level. But
no, yeah, like so to me, like again, this isn't a policy thing, like because I know Tim Scott has a bunch of stuff I disagree with, right? Like foreign policy included. I think that he would also look great next to Joe Biden. He has a great story.
Oh,
he seems like a nice guy too. Like to most people, he seems like a nice, normal guy in a way that like Donald Trump does not. Like people like him because he's a fighter, but I think a lot of people are like, man, can we just get someone like who kind of seems like a normal human in office? But like,
go back to human beings.
Yeah, like Donald Trump and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they don't seem like normal humans. They're I think, at least to me, I mean, maybe someone thinks that like all that is just how people act, but like
Kamala and it literally goes on gibberish tours, man. Like,
yeah, it's so strange.
It's the weirdest string of words to put together, and then she acts like, there, I nailed it.
Everything, like not everything, but like there are so many like video clips of her where she sounds like the freshman in class who didn't do the reading but is trying to sound smart anyway. Like that is like
intellectual. It's horrible, man. She's awful. It's weird that she was
in addition to her bad politics.
Like, why did he pick her? She checked boxes. It was identity politics. It's a problem, right? It's not a solution. Identity politics is a solution to nothing. And bro, I love everybody. Like it's just she's awful. Like that's what identity politics got us Kamala Harris. That's it.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
So Kevin, I was all aboard the aliens existing, aliens being real, and now all of a sudden the government's kind of like, hey, you know what? Aliens might be real, and I'm just like, and I tweeted about it. I'm just like, now that the government's on board.
Now you're like, it's fake. It's fake. This is a distraction.
I'm out. I'm out.
Just your belief system, whatever the government says, the opposite of that.
Fermi's paradox makes way more sense. Like, that's it. I'm done. I'm done with you, government. Like, nope. No such thing.
I know. So yeah, like the whole alien thing, like it's a couple of like Air Force pilots who are like, hey, here's some stuff that's like weird and we can't really explain it. Like just aircraft or objects that seem to move in a way that didn't really match with their expectations of how like objects should move, right? So whatever they changed the name of this, they're not calling them UAPs anymore. I think I'm like, or UFOs anymore. Is it
UAPs, and it's unidentified aerial phenomena. And the last time we talked about UFOs, I couldn't remember unidentified aerial phenomena. And UAP, so basically these things, UFO. Yeah, these objects like travel at rates of speed that surpass even the railgun, right? Like 60 miles in a minute. Not like that's 3,600 miles per hour. Like that's an incredible like speed. They stop and they hover, and apparently some of them play tic-tac-toe. That's what I'm hearing.
Just really good drones.
Yeah. Well,
you've seen one of them light shows. That seems like magic to me. I don't know.
Arguably, if they are drones, right?
It'd still be amazing.
We're in trouble. Like our planes aren't going to be able to keep up with them if they weaponize those drones. Like whose technology is that? And that's actually that I'm paraphrasing an argument that one of the guys made in the UFO hearing, and his name is Grush. Grush is his last name. I don't even know what his first name is, but yeah, he's saying like, look, if this is really happening, and he's saying that we have those crashed vehicles, we have biological material that's from other planets stored in freezers.
Yeah, although he keeps saying he has evidence of this. but also he's like, well, I know people who have seen the crashes with non-human biological material in it,
Yeah, I
which
love that.
also isn't like extraterrestrial biological material. Not non-human biological material could be like a dog or something. Like it's
Yeah. Yeah.
and like there's a lot of like innuendo and implication, and like I have heard from people, but like the actual hard evidence, like I mean, again, this guy has like a legit intelligence background, but like the actual hard evidence of this stuff hasn't really shown up yet. So I'm not quite on the there's definitely aliens train yet. Like I mean, there probably are, but like I don't know that this stuff in the hearing convinced me that they're aliens.
Well, some of it sounded like, hey, you know what we need to do? We need it to grow the Space Force. Like that's kind of what it sounded like. So I was a little like I got a
Right.
little
Yeah. So like that. That's
skeptical
the whole
myself.
point of this hearing is like, wow, we really need to fund the Space Force more.
We
Like what,
we
like maybe this isn't real, but what if it was?
but what
Would
if
we be prepared militarily if
the
aliens
old
attacked?
government argument? What if it was? What if it is real?
Yeah.
Like everybody that wants to convince you of something that's ridiculous. But what if it was?
Yeah.
What if it was
we
real?
spend a few $1 trillion. Maybe we'll be ready. Maybe we'll be ready when the aliens come.
That's what's
we
money
can make
anyway.
those
They just
promises.
print it. It's like nothing.
Yeah.
They'll devalue everything, and that's just one more good way to like continue the broken windows fallacy.
Yeah.
As opposed to the broken windows theory, which Rudy Giuliani still is very proud of. Like he was, I was down in Long Island, 77, WABC's on. He's got a show on there. He is unindicted co-conspirator number one. He is aware of that. And he's like, yeah, I might be indicted. I'm like, well, worse things could happen. And look, he did actually do a job. Like New York City, this is an interesting kind of side note. New York City used to be like the pinnacle of crime all over the world. Like everybody was like, we're not going to New York City because it's riddled with crime.
It's a very dangerous place.
And Rudy Giuliani took some major steps to clean that action up. They were almost totalitarian in a way. They were very authoritarian. And certainly he was bragging about catching the last serial killer, because that's big news down there right now. They just caught a serial killer in Hicksville or something like that. And they caught a serial killer when he was mayor, based on the broken windows thing. Like if someone breaks the law, we've got to investigate them. We've got to put our foot on their neck, and we've got to figure out what they're all about every single time. As simple as breaking a window or running a red light, or
and like
a toll.
Yeah, and just to give the theory behind that, right? Like this actual sociological theory is that like a community is less likely to have people who think it's okay to commit crimes if it's taken care of. If they see that windows are broken, that there's garbage on the ground, that there's panhandlers out, there's the unauthorized window washers about, that there's graffiti all over, you're more likely to think that your community is not cared for, that is not watched after, and that no one cares if you're going to commit a crime. So what is one more thing? What is one more petty theft on top of like the garbage heap that like is your neighborhood?
That's well done, Kevin. You are very good at explaining these things.
So like that was the theory that he was applying to New York. Now, like, what was it that like it probably that probably did help actually, but there's other stuff too. Like we took lead out of gasoline around the same time. Which probably actually did help.
Would say that again?
Taking lead out of gasoline.
Arguably, like lead is a neuro poison, right? A neurotoxin.
It's neurotoxin, and it makes you more impulsive. It lowers your inhibitions, and it makes it so that you're more likely to act on like an instantaneous violent impulse and do something dumb.
Yeah. So that it's a correlation. And there's no way to prove one over the other, is there?
No, there's a great Freakonomics chapter about it. Like the book Freakonomics like talks about this. They're like, well, it could be that like the broken windows enforcement, the Rudy Giuliani type of thing. Like we went in these neighborhoods, we cleaned it up, and because neighborhoods are cleaned up and we got like the worst like out of the streets and into jail, like we increased our incarceration rates. That made our communities better because those people couldn't be out committing more crimes. That's one theory. The other theory is the leaded gasoline thing. Like, well, we don't have lead in the air everywhere
we don't
now.
have a neurotoxin
Yeah.
No, I get it.
And then the other one was increased access to abortion was like their other theory, but that one's like kind of the weakest of the three. Basically,
I,
like,
I don't
you
know.
know,
I get it, but I don't know. The abortion wormhole, I don't even want to go down it.
no.
The old stop and frisk Rudy, like, and look, there's people that want stop and frisk back in New York City, like I thought it was an awful authoritarian quagmire, and it was abused. It was enforced based on skin color.
Yeah.
Honestly, like New York City is still a mess. They have a spike in crime. If people could defend themselves adequately, all
Yeah.
this stuff would go away. Period.
Yeah,
That's it. And they
that would
can't.
help a ton.
Yeah.
And I said, the spike in crime isn't as bad as it was in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s too, but
Sure.
still not great. It's still worth addressing, right?
That's true. Yeah, no, we have not, guys. Despite the increases in crime, we need to be aware that they're still not as bad as it was when apparently a neurotoxin was in the air, making everybody insane.
Yep.
Arguably.
Yeah. Cody, I don't know that that's true.
I tried to put that up there too.
Yeah. Giuliani turned to homeless in the Soylent Green.
I don't
that
doubt
that is a rumor.
Yeah. I don't doubt that.
But if you see Soylent Green on the shelves, maybe don't trust it.
Now, check it out. I met Rudy Giuliani face to face, literally. He officiated one of my friends from college's wedding. Like my friend's wife was a prosecutor in the DA's office, and they could just ask the mayor, and the mayor would officiate their wedding ceremony. So for a long time, I had a picture, like it was like one of those Polaroid pictures of me and him, shaking hands or whatever. It was pretty cool.
That's neat.
His head is huge. Like his head is like abnormally large for his body. And my head is abnormally large for my body, but his head is freakishly large. It's freakish. It's
like
was terrified me a little bit. Really.
Like Donkey Kong mode on GoldenEye large. And
it was weird, man. I'm not kidding.
But I didn't want to let this comment from Shelly pass because it's pretty great. It said Kevin nailed Kamala. Moby Dick was about a guy named Moby, and because he's named Moby, and with Moby being such a great name, like no, that's perfect. That is the freshman. I didn't read the book, and I'm gonna try to go on. And if I talk long enough, maybe people will think I'm smart. Says the radio host who has to talk a long time.
Yeah. Back then, Cody, you're about my age, so we had government cheese, man. You could just walk up to a truck and get a big old block of cheese. Now they store it in caves. So I don't know.
There are cheese caves out there. If the apocalypse ever happens, like head for the cheese caves.
But I don't know if he actually fed the homeless to the hungry. That's very humanitarian, really. It's people, bro.
It's people feeding people. No, I'm trying to think if there are other things that we wanted to talk about today besides the aliens.
I do want to give a shout out. I feel bad for Justin Trudeau and Bill de Blasio. They are both experiencing marital difficulty. Please respect their privacy at this trying time.
I will continue not paying attention to them.
I just sometimes you got to cover pop issues. Justin Trudeau separating from his wife Clarice. That's not a real name. I just made that up. I think her name starts with a C. And Bill de Blasio also separating from his wife. He loves her enough to let her do whatever she wants, or he made some sort of like virtuous, kind of like nauseating. It's just not working out. She can do whatever she wants. Kind of, I love her no matter what. Like,
yeah,
okay, that's nauseating.
Sounds like a good PR statement.
But is it a coincidence that at nearly the same time these two guys are getting rid of their wives? That's the real question.
Probably.
Well, I mean, can't we start a conspiracy theorist? Like,
so Tim's like, all right, got my foil hat on, like I'm ready. This is a conspiracy somehow. We're gonna find the root.
Those two guys have
got charts.
They've been there for each other. They behave similarly. They're both kind of authoritarian liberals who couch their authoritarianism in love for, I don't know, people. I don't know. Like, they're such a weird bunch of liars and so authoritarian that, like, I don't know how anybody buys their virtue signaling. I don't get it, but people do.
This is why I don't pay attention to them, and I will continue not paying attention
You're
to
a better man
like
than me.
yeah until like Canada invades Western New York, then I will get a sudden interest in Canadian politics.
They
And the
could.
closest they've gotten to is invading us with smoke.
They got all the way to the White House and burned it right to the ground. So if they
did.
know,
It's been a
know.
couple hundred years though, you know,
Yeah.
like it's been a minute. I mean, maybe they're overdue. I don't know.
They know if they put their minds to it, Kevin, they could repeat that.
Maybe it is. So they gotta get through. Okay, they make it get through Western New York. I don't know, but
Just come over and take over Rochester. And then that would be
Rochester. We already have a hockey team called the Americans. You know, it's a mascot.
That would be awkward politically. Work
out. No, I remember the other thing I was gonna talk about, like, is like, have you seen any of the news about like the Fidel is so upset?
His son is in the crossfire, arguably.
Yeah, and I was going to talk about like the superconductor news. That was the alien thing reminded me of that, which is either the biggest news of the century that no one is paying attention to, or a total fraud. I don't know which. I can't figure it out.
Was that they now have superconductors that will operate at room temperature? Is that
room temperature and ambient pressure.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, which would be awesome if they did. Like it would legit be
awesome
like a revolution.
Terminator, bro. What is wrong with you, man?
Yeah, no, I mean I'm here. I for one welcome our new robot overlords.
All right, that's fair.
No, but like it would be cool. Like it's because someone had said like this would be the biggest invention since the invention of the transistor, right? Like it'd be huge. Like it'd revolutionize like motors and batteries and make fusion power much more likely and electric airplanes possible and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Flying cars, right?
Flying cars, like legitimately, like we could store so much energy that flying cars, like based on batteries, would probably work.
All right, then I'm all on board. I'm not even going to worry about Skynet. I don't care. I'm not going to worry about Terminator.
Quantum computing is now going to be in the palm of our hand, and our AI-powered, bot networks are going to be able to access that level of computing power, and hopefully won't do anything malicious with it.
Well, all we got to do is guard against nefarious people, which is impossible. So there will be problems if it is in fact real.
Yeah, nefarious or stupid. That again, I fully believe that the world might end in like a robot apocalypse because someone like programmed something wrong without thinking it through.
Arguably, that the sin of gluttony, that whole I go back to it, that Frederick Pohl novella about people being forced to consume. Poor people have to consume X amount of goods per month. Like the what the heck? I can't remember the name of it right now, but so much stuff could be made through technological advancements that we wouldn't even be able to consume it all, and that we would have to.
We can have a post-scarcity society. It could be Star Trek.
We could already have a post-scarcity society if we didn't hand the reins of scarcity over to literal psychopaths in the government. Like we were already post-scarcity. Like, and they screwed it up. They re-engineered scarcity.
Oh,
that's a reality.
We got to freeze everything in place and just redistribute what we got now, and be content with that. That's and maybe degrowth a tiny bit. Maybe just a little bit. Like if a few people have to die because like it makes us feel better about the earth, then so what? Break a few eggs and stuff, right? That's
yeah. All right, so look at this one. No talk of the writers' actor strike. So I've actually done a pretty good job of avoiding it. I'm basically like Hollywood could just kind of dissolve, and I'd be like, all right, well, somebody else will figure something out. The free market will provide.
I, for one, welcome our new AI actor overlords.
Me too, man.
No, I don't really have like all that strong opinions of it about it. Like honestly, like it's like I understand the issues. Like a lot of it is related to AI, like both like using the likeness of actors and not like giving long-term compensation for that, or having basically Chat GPT generated scripts. And the writers want to oppose that, and they also want to have like writing minimums and stuff like that, and they have different wants. They want better pay structure for like streaming content.
Sure.
The problem is that like the money's kind of not there in some of those situations, so
No.
you know it's
Good luck.
there's not really going to be a winner here. It's just that there's a lot of free stuff out there. There's a lot of low cost stuff out there. There's market competition in that space. And so there's kind of less money to go around in any individual studio. And that's going to make things tough. And some studios just straight up are going to use like ChatGPT. Like if you use ChatGPT to write an episode of Paw Patrol, sorry, no one would notice. Like I would not at all know. I have seen now like 300 episodes of Paw Patrol. They are all the same. They are shows meant to sell toys. That is all it is.
That's like, it.
The plot is the same in almost every episode with like minor differences. A robot could write it and I would not know the difference. No, nor would my child know the difference.
It might actually be better, really.
Yeah. So
AI overlords, honestly, like the writer's strike, I could care less, but I would not know how. Like that's a reality. Like I'm afraid though that like the Biden administration will be like, well, we've got to step in and kind of fix this thing. And, you know, Hollywood's a little bit too big to fail. And so what we've got to do is like, you know, print $1 trillion and fund a few projects and, you know, get them back on their feet. That's what I'm worried.
Yeah, we just got to give them some subsidies. Yeah, New York will be on it. I know it.
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely.
We love our subsidies. Spider-Man 2 was filmed in Rochester. We subsidized the heck out of it.
Of course they did, right? Of course.
Yeah. To make Rochester look like New York City.
Now, did they actually pay them to come do the work, or did they just say we're not going to charge you taxes for the?
It was like a tax break plus like a few other like incentives.
Okay.
So
basically, they paid them. That's great.
Yeah. So yeah, and again, I mostly don't have strong opinions. Shelly mentioned like, oh, she has a brother in SAG. You know, I have like family members who are like, I think he's in SAG, and who are like involved in stuff. And they're very passionate about it. I get it. I don't have strong opinions either way. I think this is a private dispute. I don't know how it will turn out. You know,
I just see. I
don't want the government involved though. I don't want the government involved. That's my position on it. Like, just stay out of it, Joe Biden.
He's not going to, because it's going to be a great, like, can you imagine if the new sitcoms don't come out in the fall? And if we run out of movies, like what's going to happen?
Political. We're going to watch YouTube. They're going to watch a free solution. That's what they're going to do. Like, hey, you don't have your nightly program. Watch a free solution instead. We're here for you.
It is. And guys, if we get a bunch of subscribers, Kevin and I will do this like way more often.
Yeah.
Could you imagine like if we actually made money at this? What kind of dream that would be? That would be so awesome.
Be a neat thing. Yeah. Now, and be a cool thing. Y'all gotta subscribe. And and speaking of strikes, we didn't talk about this, but there's gonna be a nurses' strike in Rochester tomorrow.
That's kind of scary, actually.
Yeah. No, it's a thing. Yeah. So it's going on for at least 2 days. Negotiations fell apart again today. So like, yeah, the Rochester like General Health Hospital, I think it might be the whole RRH system here. The nurses are going on strike. The union's on strike. So any of the unionized nurses, the travel nurses aren't included, but the unionized nurses, they're going to be out picketing tomorrow. And it's kind of scary. I mean, some of the things are reasonable. They're like, hey, y'all bought metal detectors and you haven't installed the metal detectors, and people are bringing in weapons.
Not only weapons, but look, hospitals. I've been in hospitals in urban areas that are heavily secured, because there is an element of access to drugs and certain very expensive equipment that security seems to make sense in that situation. If they don't even have metal detectors installed, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so it's like the nurses are concerned about security, and then of course it's like pay and hours and stuff. And so that's going to be another one where like also like medical care is about to get upended by like robotics and automation too. And
we hope, right? We hope on some level.
It's going to get disruptive. Like it's in both good ways and bad.
well, the big hospital system is by and large unsustainable. It's funny that we got to this because I have a personal story that I kind of wanted to share, but I might as well share it, right? Like I someone in my life has had a long-term problem with their hip, like long-term pain, and what she was getting from a big, hospital system was, we'll manage your pain for you, and it's like that was not acceptable. That wasn't working. The occasional cortisone shot that every 3 months or something was not working. We finally went and got a second opinion, and they were like, well, your joint's ruined. It's a 1-day surgery. You're in, you're out. Boom. Like
Yeah.
you will be pain free in that joint. Like that's it. So there's a certain like inevitable consequence to coming up with programs to support your system that can be countermanded, outsmarted by the free market, outsmarted by a smaller outfit that's more in tune with what patients need.
Yeah. And so unfortunately right now it's difficult for those types of alternatives to emerge given all
Certificates
the
of need,
certificate of need
300
laws.
doctor certifications a year for New York State, all sorts of insane restrictions on offering healthcare in New York State. It's very weird. When people look into it, they're always amazed. They don't believe me until they actually look into it for themselves. Look into it.
Yeah.
Look into what a certificate of need means. Look into how many doctors get licenses, how many doctors get licenses in New York State every year, what the maximum number is.
Yeah.
So,
thing. And as Patricia said, nurses deal with more violent people daily than any police officers. Yeah. I mean, like, they have a tough job. It's like I said, this region, like nurses strike, it's kind of frightening of the implications for medical care, but like I get it. I get some of their issues do make sense to me. And we're not going to dive into it now. Like maybe next week, if it ends up getting extended or something, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But
well, good luck with that nurses strike. I hope they get what they want, and I hope that the hospital can get back in shape. Like that's it. That's
thing. It's like
even though it's unsustainable.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, like they know it too. Like they're aware that like the way they're doing things now is kind of like unsustainable. Like because they're kind of like they're getting a bunch of subsidies from the government, and they're like, well, we're operating at a capacity where we're barely, able to keep things going with all these subsidies. What if that environment changes? What do we do? And so the hospital systems as a whole are trying to figure out like, what do we do in a post-COVID environment? How do we keep offering this level of service to the community? Are we able to keep like the robustness of service available? And how do we keep skilled employees like nurses who have a lot of incentive to just do like travel nurse programs and make much more money?
Can't blame them. It's a huge difference, and they actually end up working less hours and making lots more money. So
yeah,
it's a strange. We've incentivized a very strange system there, But we've went on for pretty long here.
Yeah, no, I think it's probably about time to call it for the night. Thanks everyone who's listening tonight. John, Shelley, Patricia, Sean, all of y'all. Cody.
Yeah, Sean, keep fighting that good battle, bro. We appreciate it. Thanks, Cody, for stopping by. Good stuff.
Right. And thanks for being here, folks. Have a good night.